All right. Well, I just would like to welcome everybody to our live stream interview with Mads from Sailing Life. I would like to first just go through a little bit of logistics on how this conversation will go, and then we will jump into some of the fun details. This is set up so that we do have people that are also on a Zoom call, and those that are on Zoom will have the ability to answer questions throughout this conversation. What I would encourage you to do is please use your chat feature. You're not going to be able to pop in as a talking head. You'll get to pop in with a chat that we will look at, and Mads and I will be able to monitor the questions coming in and be able to read them out and have Mads answer them if appropriate. This is also being live streamed on YouTube, and it is being recorded, so you will be able to replay this at a future time on YouTube. So without any further ado, what I would like to do is introduce Mads to the Antares Forum. Mads, welcome. Thank you very much for joining us this evening.
Thank you so much, Mark.
Yeah, you're more than welcome. I think it's important, if some of you may not have any idea or not that aware of Mads and Sailing Life, so I thought I would give you a little bit of background on his channel. So Mads has had the Sailing Life channel now since 2014. He has 145,000 subscribers, which is no small number, and he has produced over 670 videos. So Mads has been doing this now for a long time, and I thought that as an Antares owner, and Mads now as a current Antares owner, it would be a lot of fun to just get into some more details about just what is it like being Mads, what are his future plans, and just get some idea and have a conversation about a little bit more behind the scenes from his actual YouTube channel. So Mads, let me just jump in and just first ask you the big question that I've heard a number of people ask me over the last, 12 months. And that's, what's your background? I mean, we know you as Mads, on the YouTube channel fixing stuff, but
Yeah.
how did you get into doing this? Are you an engineer? What's your background?
So, my background is as a software developer. That's what I went to school for, and that's what I did for almost 20 years. But I've always liked to tinker with stuff. And in 2012, I think it was, I fell down a flight of stairs, and I got some nerve damage in my back, and that meant I couldn't work for 6 months. And during those 6 months, I started thinking a lot about what it was I wanted to do with my life. And I got this idea of going sailing, right? But there was no way I could afford a boat that could actually feasibly be used for long distance cruising.
Yeah.
So the only way I could do it was by finding something super cheap and then fixing it up. So it was kind of born out of necessity. But to be honest, I really like it. So that was kind of fortunate.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think anybody that's watched any of your videos, you seem to go into a lot of detail about how you fix things, and that's not something, you weren't in an engineering school for the marine industry learning how to build boats. You were having to pick this up. How did you pick this up, 12 years ago? It was not as easy as it is today. I mean, was it all just still Googling stuff? I mean, how did you learn to be so technical on fixing these things?
It was a lot of Googling, and it was a lot of, later on, it was a lot of YouTube stuff when that started really picking up, right? And then it's been some trial and error, just figuring things out. Yeah. And it's just, I remember, when I bought the first boat, which was a 30-foot monohull, an Albin Ballot, the Swedish-built boat, I found this blog post of a guy. He was either American or Canadian, I can't remember, but he had completely gutted that boat and rebuilt it. And that blog, for months, that was kind of my Bible. I read those so many times. Yeah.
And so then you just simply said, what the heck? You just went out and bought your first boat and tear it apart and rebuild it. That's how it happened.
Yep. I feel like then I could do it. So
impressive. So you started to do that. Were you thinking, hey, this would make a lot of sense to maybe document this whole process? I mean, when did that idea of documenting what you were doing for everybody else to watch come into play?
So that was kind of actually born out of a different kind of reason that I knew I wanted to go like long distance cruising. Um, but I figured if I showed up in a new country somewhere and I didn't know anybody, then I would be kind of lonely because I'm not like in person, I'm not the most outgoing guy. So it'd be nice to know somebody to like visit or something, like have somebody come aboard or like just know
Okay.
somebody. So that's why I started doing it. Like I started making YouTube videos because I wanted to see if I could make some friends like out in the rest of the world.
No kidding. So you were doing this purely for, I wouldn't call it selfish reasons, but to really help you meet people and
Yeah.
create a network of friends so that you would have somebody to kind of lean on as you started your journey at some point in the future. Wow.
That was the only reason I started because back then like you couldn't monetize YouTube or anything like that. So my only motivation when I started was to make friends.
Make friends. That's
Yeah.
amazing. Well, thanks for sharing. I was curious just kind of how that whole thing got started. So as you then progressed, Mads, to kind of where you are today, you know, the learning curves that you had to go through to learn different bits, whether it be fiberglass repair or woodworking, or dealing with just repairing something as complicated as an electrical system. Did you have any of those core fundamentals? I know that you said that you were a software engineer, but did you have any basis for like doing electrical work or doing mechanical work around woodworking? How did that come to bit? Or was it just research and learn?
It was a lot of research and learn, but actually like as a kid, I wanted to become an electrician. Like that
Okay.
that was what I thought I was gonna do. But then we had these, I don't know what it's called in English, like, but in like the ninth and 10th grade, you go spend a week or two with like whatever profession you think you're gonna be in.
Yeah.
Uh, and I did that in the local town where I lived, and it was a horrible, horrible experience. So I went off to high school and university instead.
That's
So
probably
that,
smart. Yeah.
I mean, I've always had a like a electrical systems like they appeal to me.
Good.
Um, and I fixed up like after university I bought a house and I fixed that up, but that was kind of the extent of my like DIY journey.
Sure. Fascinating. So then my other question would be if you look at, a boat and a big boat project, we can kind of put the different types of work into categories. It could be fiberglass work, it could be joinery, it could be electrical systems, it could be mechanical, it could be designing a solution to fix a problem. Of those different categories, which one do you enjoy the most? And which one do you think, oh my God, I got to do that again?
Well, that'll be D, all of the above.
All the above.
Uh, no, it's I mean there are I like certain aspects of all of it.
Okay.
Um, it's more it's not so much if it's fiberglass or it's metal or it's wood. It's more like
Yeah.
the specific project if there's something interesting, right? Like it's um uh, like if I can, for instance, when I made new hatches for the tramp ramp on the PDQ on Terry's, right? Um, I did that in the mold that I CNC cut on a friend's CNC, and that was like that made that project cool. Like there was a whole bit of like CAD and CAM and
Yeah.
uh, then vacuum infusion, right? So it's more like if you get to try new stuff every once in a while, then that's really cool.
Yeah. So just one final question in this area, and then we'll jump onto a new topic, and that's have you always been interested in sailing, or is that something that you, as a kid, or is that something that, as you mentioned, when you were working in your career and you kind of got injured, you said, "Hey, let's try something different. Let's go sailing." Where did that come into play?
Well, that I think that started when I was a kid, out of out of two reasons. And I don't know which one of them came first, but there was this famous like TV sailor guy in Denmark, Troels Kløvedal. He had like a TV show and everything. Like he was cruising back when it was like really cool to cruise, right? Very
Yeah.
exotic. Uh, and there was something intrigued me about that. And then also my uncle had a sailboat. But the part of Denmark where I grew up in, there's no recreational sailing because it's the west coast and like there's no, it's too rough. Um, so I never got the chance until like I was done with university and I had bought the house, fixed up the house. Right, it's fallen down the stairs, whatever. It's yeah,
Wow.
um, yeah.
So so it just kind of it started young, and then eventually you had the opportunity to really give that a second thought, and then you just went for it. You bought the boat and just said, "Let's do it."
Yeah.
Had you spent a lot of time on the water before, or was it kind of you thought you might like it, but you weren't sure, but you said, "What the heck? Let's just go do this."
No, I really haven't. Like, not really. Like, I joined a sailing school and I had one lesson, and I figured, yep, now's the time to buy the first boat.
Really? So just like that, gone.
Yeah, I mean, it was an old piece of junk, but it was,
Oh, well, that's
but
okay. It was still sailing though, right? Right.
yeah, yeah.
So so you started with a small sailboat. Let's kind of bring us up to kind of where we are today. So you've had a couple monohulls. You still have one, and now you went and purchased a catamaran to go through and refinish. Why did you move from monohull to catamaran? Because you could have just as well bought another monohull, bigger monohull, and refinished that one. What? Why catamaran?
Well, it was under the slogan of double trouble. No.
Double trouble, double the effort. Go ahead. No.
Uh, no, it was. So there are many things we like about this boat, Athena. She's a 38-foot monohull, right? Um, but two people living aboard a 38-foot boat full time, it's okay, but it's a lot of moving stuff to get to other stuff, which is
Yeah.
one of my pet peeves, right? So we knew we wanted something bigger. And Ava, my wife, has always been team catamaran, and I didn't think we could afford a catamaran. I thought that was completely out of our grasp.
Yeah.
So we were actually looking at monohulls like in the 50 to 60 foot range, also
Okay.
old decrepit stuff,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But yeah, then the Antares popped up.
So it popped up, and then you went ahead and went for the catamaran. Okay, that's great. Well, I mean, obviously I'm biased because I own a catamaran, but I just was curious if there are people that are just completely adamant about monohull versus catamaran, that old debate. So you were open to either solution, but your wife was pretty keen on going with a catamaran. It sounds like.
Ava was definitely keen on the catarines. She was mainly keen on it from like a livability perspective.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, I could be happy on either catamaran or monohull. I would be fine. And that being said, there are certain things I look forward to with the catamaran, like the less rolling in anchorages. That's gonna be nice. Like that.
it is nice. Yes. And you spend like 80% plus of your time on the hook, usually in an anchorage. So I mean, yeah, it would be nice to be comfortable. Well, we've mentioned Ava a couple times, and I know, Mads, that you had a video a number of years ago that introduced Ava to your YouTube channel and kind of and also gave your story and how you met. But can't you just summarize how did you and Ava meet, and how did that whole process get put together?
Yep. Yep. So the story starts with me almost getting catfished. Not by Ava, but by somebody else, right? And then it turns out to be like it was a very obvious lie. I don't, not a lot of effort was put into that catfishing attempt, but um, so like 2 weeks later or whatever, this email pops up from some random woman in California, uh, and because I just had been through that catfishing attempt, I was like, ah, yeah, that's yeah. So I didn't pay much attention, right? But
Right.
then for whatever reason, I took a second look at that email, and then eventually 2 weeks later, I replied to Ava, and to this day, she still hasn't let me get over that it took 2 weeks to reply. That's a point of contention. So yeah, um, so yeah, we started emailing back and forth, and that was very long emails, like freaking novels. Like it took hours to type out that stuff. I did, yeah,
Really?
yeah. Luckily, eventually we started FaceTiming,
Okay.
and then after
Yeah.
about Six
That's a
months.
brave move, though. That's a very brave move to go from written text to FaceTiming. How did that?
Yeah, but it was fine. It was actually a super
Yeah.
big relief, right? Because for months we'd been stuck in this like world where I came home from work and then I spent 2 hours typing email,
Yeah.
and then I had a bit of free time to do other stuff, right? So just being able to like jump on a call much quicker, right?
Sure, sure. It's also a lot. You have that instant feedback going back
Yeah.
and forth versus the written word kind of going back and forth. Do you happen to remember the title of that episode? When you introduced Ava to your YouTube channel. Do you remember the title of that?
Oh.
I do, but go ahead. I'll tell
Does it have something with unicorn in it? No, it doesn't.
No, it was. I'm going to read it to you, and I want you to respond. It says, "Meet my girlfriend Ava and goodies from the U.S."
Okay.
I read that and I laughed real hard. And goodies from the U.S. I didn't know if that was all about Ava or if it was two separate pieces. Can you explain that?
Yeah. Back then, every time I would fly to Los Angeles to visit Ava, I would end up bringing stuff back to Denmark, right? Because a lot of stuff was cheaper in the US, so
Sure,
I would end
sure.
up loading in a suitcase and flying it back. So those were the goodies.
Yeah, I'm sure. I had to just put that out there for a good laugh. So my other question for you is, then after you and Ava, obviously you guys got together. I mean, what were some of the big adjustments that you had to go through? You're very independent. You're doing all this stuff. You have your own YouTube channel. You're fixing your boat, and now you introduce Ava into the mix. How did that transition work?
Um, that went really well. Like no issues, I would say. I mean, we did. So when Ava flew to Denmark to move on to the boat, right? In best cruising fashion, we were under the gun, right? Because we weren't married at a point in time. So she had to get out of Schenken. And also it was the fall and we had to get to the UK, which the weather in the North Sea during the fall and winter is not what you want.
Yeah.
So us moving in kind of together collided with a bunch of stress to get the boat ready to make the move to the UK.
Yeah. What what's so just another follow up to that, and that's there are a couple people that I recently talked to. One of them may even be on this call watching, and I know that this individual's in the process of trying to bring somebody on board. Any advice on what not to do?
Like to bring somebody in for sale.
Yeah, to bring a partner on board. Any advice on what to watch out for? Any words of wisdom?
I would say watch out for bad weather windows.
Watch out for bad weather windows. Yeah.
Yeah, like that was really when we left Denmark. That was at the top of my mind, right? I did not want Ava to have a bad experience. Like she had done the like first of the ASA courses before leaving the US, but she didn't really have any sailing experience.
So she wasn't a sailor before.
No, not really. She'd done the and that was about it. We'd rented a boat once in LA, but that was it. So I really was very focused on like us not getting a bad experience.
Yeah. That's really good advice, Mads, because I can say even from my own personal experience, when I had my wife and two kids and we moved on board, I made sure that they initially flew to some of the destinations and I sailed a boat there because I was really worried that, unhappy wife, unhappy life. And next thing you would know, the boat would be on the market and it's a lot cheaper. I still tell people this today. It's a heck of a lot cheaper to buy an airfare ticket than it is to sell your boat. So if you're not sure, just go slow and the weather windows are super critical. So
Yeah.
I would agree with you on that. If your boat could talk, what would it say about the two of you? If the boat had a headline for Ava and Mads, what would that headline be?
That's a good question. Oh, I don't know.
Yeah. Would it be?
Um,
It's okay. I just thought I would another project or this is great, wonderful. It's bliss.
Yeah.
No, it's okay. Yeah.
Maybe stop standing me. No.
Stop sanding me. Uh, so let's just move now, Mads, to the next kind of area of conversation. We've covered Mads and the background, your background. I think a lot of people would be interested in just kind of understanding what it is, what's a day in the life of Mads like. So a lot of people have the opportunity to tune into your channel once a week and they see this really cool content, the cool projects that you're working on. But there's a lot of behind the scenes things that are taking place. I mean, what's it like for you throughout the week? I mean, how does that look and kind of what are your day-to-day tasks like when you get up in the morning and you're preparing, you're fixing your boat? What's that like?
Um, I think it depends on, like, if you'd asked me 3 or 4 months ago, the answer would have been different, right? Because right now we're in a period where we're trying to get the catamaran to a state where we can motor it to North Carolina. So there's a lot of pressure on, and there's been a lot of pressure on for the last 3 months.
Yeah.
So like I haven't had a day off in 3 months, and it's been all 12, 16-hour days, right? So
Wow.
it's been pretty much nonstop. So it depends a lot on when you ask, but well, every single day I go to the catamaran, basically. Every once in a while I'll have like an office day where it's bookkeeping or ordering stuff,
Yeah.
and yeah. But it's
Wow.
usually all day at the catamaran.
So are there any days where you just simply or types of days that when you get up, you say, man, I'm just really exhausted. But you got to, like people get up and go to work every morning. And sometimes they say, man, I'm exhausted. I don't feel like doing this. Or are you pretty much energized? Your personality on camera is very upbeat. You're just always, sure, you get frustrated with yourself. Oh, I was so stupid. I did this, but you power through it. What's that? How do you stay that upbeat, that motivated?
Um, so that if I have an off day, and I do have an off day every once in a while, right? What can instantly cure that is if I have like a project that I'm looking forward to, and
Okay.
it's weird, right? Because it what makes me look forward to a project, it's not a hard and fast rule. It can be anything. Like for instance, like tomorrow I'm gonna we ordered a brand new the seats for the Antares, like at the helm station,
Yeah.
and tomorrow I'm gonna figure out how to install that. And for whatever reason, that I'm super excited about, and I don't really know why because it's just a freaking seat, but like that's been motivating me all day thinking about tomorrow. Like that's yeah.
So do you ever stay awake late at night trying to engineer a solution or how am I going to do this? Or do you pretty much turn it off and you're pretty much off to sleep? You don't think about work or think about your next cool project when you're sleeping or
Um,
laying in bed at night.
I'm pretty good at turning it off at night.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I do most of like my project figuring out in the car. It's a
Oh,
45-minute
really?
drive to the
Okay.
catamaran.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is about driving, but it just once you're used to driving a stretch, right? It's just like the brain disengages and you can just kind of wander off and do other stuff, kind of. Right?
And not get in a car accident, hopefully.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
so how do you like at the end of the day for you, what is your way to kind of relax and just say, wow, I had a great day today. I'm gonna just chill out and relax. What do you do? What does Mads like to do to kind of just relax? What does that look like?
Um, um, a lot of the time it's like figuring out like how to make an upcoming project cool,
Okay.
like
Okay.
how to make it interesting for, well, maybe for viewers, but also for myself.
Okay.
Like how what can I add to this project to make me excited about it?
So give me an example of that. Like, do you have an example that you can think of that you said, that's a cool idea. It's going to make me excited. It's going to be kind of a cool way to present it to my audience. Like, do you have an example? Something like that?
Um, that could be many things, right? So like when I built those new hatches for the tramp ram, right?
Yep.
I could just have made those in CAD and just be done with it. But
Yeah.
instead, I got a 3D scanner and then 3D scanned the old ones and then used that to make the CAD for the new ones.
Yeah.
Which, you know, that's you didn't like I didn't have to do that, but it made the project interesting for me.
Yeah. Well, it was also interesting for me because I did watch that episode, and it goes into, we mentioned this earlier before we even went live, but I'm fascinated, Mads, by just the little cool tools that you have and how those tools kind of are used to do cool, neat things like a 3D scanner, and then, oh yeah, I'm going to go ahead and 3D print the mold for this, and I'm going to like do this and do that. I mean, that's very creative. And how do you come up with those ideas? I mean, that's like, it takes some time to figure that stuff out. I mean, had you ever used a 3D scanner before, or was that your first time?
No, that was my first time. That was my first time, but it's um it, you know what, it's kind of like the desire to learn and to improve, like
Yeah.
that is one of the reasons why I got into the whole DIY thing, right? Because it's cool to figure out how to do stuff.
Yeah.
And then it's cool to figure out how to do stuff better.
Right.
Um, which is also why, like, when we hopefully get settled in North Carolina, and if with a bit of luck we can build a workshop up there, right? It'll be so cool to get like a bunch of CNC machines and like be able to really
Right.
eke out on some tools.
Man, you're making me jealous thinking about that because I mean, having your own CNC,
Like, okay.
oh my God, that's just amazing. So, just for fun, Mads, I mentioned this to you a little bit earlier, but can you just walk us through the 3D printer? I mean, that is one of those coolest things that I saw on one of your episodes where you're 3D printing stuff and you showed me an example. I don't know if you want to do that now, but just walk us through kind of the 3D printer, some creative ways that you're using that on your boat projects. We've seen some of them, but some of them we haven't seen yet.
I don't know if this is going to show up on camera that well,
Yeah,
but
we
so
see it great. Yes.
these are our engine controls for the catamaran, right? And we're missing some parts. And they're from Cobalt in Canada, so they're a bit slow in getting here. And I want to install this thing. One of the things that we're missing is the dome, which you can see that red thing.
Yeah.
There's a 3D printed dome that I designed because we don't have the real one yet, right? So instead of be forced to wait, it took, I don't know, 15 minutes to design it in CAD, and then it took 6 hours to print, and then,
That was it.
yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, a key part of that, of course, was the 15 minutes to do the design. You need to clearly know the program, be able to do that in 15 minutes versus, 15 hours. But still, that's amazing. Yeah.
And that's I mean, I am not a CAD expert. I am not. Like, when I showed me doing some CAD in one of the videos, I got several upset comments that you're doing it wrong. Uh, it's CAD
Yeah.
is freaking hard. It's not
Yeah.
super beginner friendly. The
Right.
learning curve is unpleasant.
And you come from a software technology background. So someone with your background would probably pick it up easier than somebody that had zero technical skills with computers. That would be a lot higher learning curve, I would think, for sure.
Maybe I
Yeah.
mean, I don't know how I can imagine it being more annoying than it was for me, but it's not an easy thing to get started in. It's definitely not.
So are there, if you think about, the stuff that you do kind of on a day-to-day basis, is there any example of something that maybe you did that you were really embarrassed about? You said, I'm not going to put that in the YouTube video. Is there something that, do you ever have a moment where you say, man, that was really dumb, I'm not going to film that? Or maybe that you went ahead and said, hey, that would make people laugh.
Uh, no. Usually all my dumb mistakes go into the video. I have this
Yeah.
character that I call Captain Dum Dum, which is whenever I
Yes.
do something really
Yeah.
stupid. Yeah,
Right.
please blame him, then say it was me, right?
Yeah.
So usually all my mistakes, they make their way into the videos. Most times it's relatively benign.
Yeah. Well, it's good. Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that because I do remember you saying Captain Dum Dum and Captain Dum Dum, and I say I'm an idiot for my kids. What an idiot! I call myself an idiot when I do stupid stuff. But that's a funny character that you have because I mean we all do stupid stuff sometimes, or stuff that we think that we should have caught and we didn't. That makes things pretty humorous.
Yeah.
So speaking about your YouTube channel, I'd like to kind of move into a little bit more on just the history of the channel and just kind of what goes into some of the mechanics of how you actually create the content. And we have at least one question here uh, from one of the people specifically about your YouTube channel. But I guess the first question I have for you is, do you remember your first YouTube video that you posted on your channel? Do you remember what it was about?
My very first one
Yeah,
was
number
it
one.
might have been just a time lapse of like a camera panning around in the boat I was refitting.
Yes, it was. It was called Removing Plywood, Albin Ballad, and it was 1 minute and 5 seconds.
Yeah, yeah.
It was a portrait view, kind of as you were
And
scanning. Yeah.
you know how that was filmed? That was
No,
filmed
tell
with
me.
a GoPro on a kitchen timer. Like it was glued on a kitchen timer and then it spun it around.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
So I was on a GoPro. That's so funny. So here you are. You started out with a GoPro, 1 minute and 5 second video to now, you do very robust, very well edited videos. A lot more thought goes into that. One of the questions that came up with someone on the call is, how did you learn videography and editing? Like, did you just, that's self-taught, obviously, I'm guessing.
It's 100% self-taught, and so far it's taken 600 and some odd videos to get there, and I still have a ton to learn. So it's just all been trial and error.
And
Uh,
what software do you use when you're editing? Do you use Premiere, Final Cut? What do you prefer?
I've used some different software, but for the majority, and what I'm still using today is Final Cut.
Final Cut.
Um,
Okay. So you're an Apple guy. You use Final Cut. Do you use Apple Motion that much with any of your motion graphics, or not so much?
No, never really got into that. But also that has a lot to do with how. So when I did the refit of this boat,
Yeah.
back in Denmark, I did that on the side while having a full-time day job, right?
Yeah.
So the amount of time that was available for editing was slim.
Slim, sure.
So yeah, everything just had to be very quick and yeah.
So if you look at just this whole progression, Mads, from when you had your first video to kind of where things are today for you with your YouTube channel, how does that make you feel? How would you describe that feeling looking back to the 1 minute and 5 second video to kind of where things are today? How do you feel about that? What goes through your brain?
Um, well, I'm proud of it. Like it's I never thought that I was going to be able to make a living off of YouTube.
Yeah.
And this is this is my dream job. It's the best job I've ever had. Like it's, you know how if you're in a job where you have your boss is not the best, he's
Yeah.
kind of like this whole little bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
See, with this job, I just have like 145,000 bosses, and if one of them,
Right.
that doesn't really matter because there's all the other ones. Look, right?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
If one doesn't matter, it doesn't matter. You have 100,000 more that are actually
Yeah.
for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're still okay, so that's good.
Yeah. Have you ever got any feedback from one of your viewers that kind of was very um uh ugh, I wish I hadn't read that.
Well, I mean, it's the internet. It's
Yes.
the bar. Really, we should have some kind of driver's license for keyboards. That's what we need. Because the
That's
bar of
awesome.
entry here is you have $15 to spend on a keyboard and you can go
Yeah.
hammer away
Go
on the
hammer
internet.
away.
Yeah. I mean, I've gotten death threats. I've gotten like,
What? Have you really?
yeah, yeah. It's
For what?
nothing I did. It's just people are people. It,
Wow.
you know,
That's unbelievable. Did that make you feel unsafe when you had someone, or did you say this guy is definitely a Looney Tune? No. No. Totally
But that
job.
one time I was in Denmark and the comment wasn't English. I mean, it's yeah, you might like one thing is leaving a comment, going on a transatlantic flight or whatever. It's a different matter.
Yeah. Wow, that's incredible. I would never have thought that you would have ever received a death threat before. So, I mean,
Yeah.
if you are you do you check your comments that often? I mean, how does that, I mean, there's a lot of work in just keeping up with that too. I mean, how does that process work? I mean, how do you maintain the engagement with your audience besides just the one-way channel of your video?
Yeah. So th- from a technical side, it's my understanding, and this changes all the time, but it's my understanding that it's very important to keep engagement up for the performance of the videos on YouTube. So
Okay.
um, whenever I have time, which hasn't been a lot the last 3 or 4 months, I'll usually take like half a day and reply to all the comments I can.
Okay.
Um, I always read all the comments, but it's just it it would be a full-time job just to reply to
Yeah.
every single comment. So
Yeah.
it's just not enough hours in the day.
Yeah. And when you do reply, it's you replying, not someone that works for you. It's not, you don't have it set up with an AI agent doing all this stuff. I mean, it's actually Mad saying, hey, thanks for the comment or this, that, or the
Yeah.
other. Yeah. So, Matt, how long does it take you when you're planning out your next episode and you're filming it? How much let's just assume, I know it's longer than a 40-hour work week. I know that. But if you think about just how much time do you have to partition to put into planning that episode, filming that episode, editing that episode, and then publishing that episode, what does that
Hmm.
slice look like of a typical work week for you with all the stuff
So
around the YouTube channel?
it's highly dependent on the type of video.
Okay.
Uh, Sometimes I get flack for talking too much in the videos, but there's a very good reason for that. For one, it's a really good way of like sharing information,
Yeah.
but it's also a really easy way to get minutes on a video.
Yeah.
So how much time I spend preparing, filming, and editing, it varies a lot from project to project. Like if it's a project where I can talk a lot,
Yeah.
then the filming will be quicker.
Yeah.
Um, in terms of editing, because I usually always have the video planned out before I start,
Yeah.
I don't have to sit at the end and try and find a story,
Yeah.
which cuts editing time down to almost nothing. And that's also again something that was born out of having to like have a full-time job on the side while doing the
Sure.
YouTube thing.
Sure.
So in a typical week, I will maybe spend 3 to 4 hours editing, and that's it.
Okay. That's it.
Uh,
That's it.
that's it. Whereas some of the other, like we've met countless channels over the years, right? And every time we talk about editing, eh, they're always flawed because it can take like multiple days for them to put
Yes.
together an episode because the way most people make videos is they film everything and then they try to find a story, which
Right.
that is hard. Like
That
that's a
is
time
hard.
process. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Sure. That's almost like trying to film some sort of a virtual, not a, what a reality TV show that just goes and then they got to find all this footage and put it together and make some story out of that. So very fast. We just got a couple messages here. It says, someone said here, don't change a thing in your videos. It works great as it is. So don't change anything, man.
Aw, thank
A
you.
lot of people are posting stuff now. It's going crazy. Let's see. I'll get to the questions here in a minute. So if we're just going back to your YouTube channel, what advice would you give somebody that's out there thinking, you know what, I really have an interest in doing this type of a niche YouTube video about sailing. Yours, of course, is around do it yourself, which appeals to a lot of people, including people that aren't sailors, because I think that if I look at the content that you create and you have 145,000 subscribers, I would be curious what that breakdown would be of those subscribers that are actually sailors, wannabe sailors, or people that are just saying, hey, I can learn a lot from this guy. I might have a house or a condo or whatever that I'm fixing, a car for that matter.
Mm.
Do you have any feel for just how that breaks down for those people that are watching your video, and what advice would you give for somebody thinking about doing this?
Somebody to get started on YouTube,
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
I would say, oof.
Oof.
Uh, I and I don't say that because you shouldn't try, but I say that because I think it's way harder to get started today. Like
Yeah.
when I started 11 years ago, it was all of YouTube was like me and four other guys, right? That's a very big exaggeration, right? But there wasn't
Of
a lot
course.
of competition out there, right? So
Yeah.
it today the market is hyper saturated.
Yep.
And unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on the side you see it from, it seems like once you are an established channel, it's easier to maintain the views than it is to break through as a new channel. But
Okay.
I don't have anything like concrete to prove that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, your subscribers has gone up significantly over the years. Is there anything that you would attribute that to? I mean, as you look at that kind of growth of your channel, is there something that you said, wow, I tweaked this and man, I saw a big boom?
Um, no,
No.
there are two things we've learned so far, and it's crazy projects like a hurricane damage catamaran are great for like gaining views.
Yeah.
Uh, it will drive subscribers. Whether or not that turns into long-term views, I don't know yet. We'll see over
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Um, what I've also learned in my journey on YouTube is thumbnails are freaking important. Um,
Okay.
way too important if you ask me. It, it can make or break a video.
No kidding. So a thumbnail is that important. It's
It
what
is the most like there's no it is the most important thing about a video is its thumbnail.
really.
And it's fascinating to me that I don't know how many billions YouTube has poured into this algorithm, right?
Yeah.
But it cannot compete with a scantily clothed lady, right? That's it can't. It's just I cannot speak. Like it's yeah.
So with that being so important and with the thumbnails, what do you have a secret sauce that you try to do to kind of always create a popping thumbnail for your next video? I mean, or yeah.
Well, that's the annoying thing, right? Because the thing we are, and I say we because Ava is a big part of this, right? But the thing we're
Yeah.
the worst at is the thumbnails
Yeah.
because it always ends up being an afterthought, and it's I don't know why because we both know that it's super important, but it always ends up being oh we need to publish this video tomorrow. We should probably do a thumbnail, right?
Yeah.
Uh, Really, what we should do is we should make a thumbnail and then we should make a video, right? That's really what we do. But
Really? That's really, really, I had no idea kind of how that worked mechanically behind the scenes and what draws clicks and how that whole process works. So the thumbnail you're saying is super, super important, more so than everything else.
100%, and it's kind of multifaceted, right? Because you don't just want to shove a naked lady on the thumbnails, right? Because yeah, sure, you'll
Right.
get a straight ton of views on that one video, but
Yeah.
it's not going to drive long-term views, and it's not going to drive good engagement long-term. So you want to find like a balance between something that's enticing, but not like a downright lie.
Right. Right. So have you thought about putting more, thumbnails with your beautiful wife on there to kind of help drive clicks or how,
We, we've always skewed away from that because
yeah,
it's
that's good.
I don't we don't need those types of views.
Of
That's
course not. Yeah. Yeah, I just didn't know, but I mean, I was joking, but I did notice, I did go
yeah,
back and look and see, I scanned through, all your videos trying to get prepared for this conversation, not watching them, but just, you scan through all the pages, see all the thumbnails. And it did seem like that some of the videos that had photos of you two together, may have been more, more appealing. Here's a couple together than just Matt's. I don't know if that's true. I didn't really run the
in terms
numbers.
in
In
terms
terms of just yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't know if when she's engaged, on your videos, do you get more
yeah.
interest just because, it's
Well,
two of you guys working together? I don't know. I don't know. I'm
Mark, it's
just thinking,
very unfortunate that this is recorded and forever on the internet now because that's one of Ava's theories is that people click more on like faces and
yeah,
reality in the thumbnail stuff like that. Um, and it's probably just because I'm an antisocial geek, but like I never click on those. Like I
yeah,
click on things that are like technically interesting.
yeah,
So
yeah,
so we kind of yeah, but she might be right about that one. It might be me that's the oddball.
yeah. No, I don't know. I was just curious myself. I was trying to
Yeah.
figure out how this whole process works. It's all new to me from that perspective. So we have a number of different questions here. Some of them are going to be relevant to a little bit later on in our conversation here. Let's see here. Um, a question here is, yours will be the only Antares with 48 volt DC system. I don't understand that. Would you have considered the same if the boat weren't hurricane damage and start from scratch? So are you going 48 volt on your boat?
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
But
So the question is, would you have done 48 volt on another boat if it didn't need a new DC system?
um, I think that wholly depends on what your aspirations are in terms of what you want to drive on. Like if we're just talking about not like electrical propulsion or anything, but if we're
Yeah.
talking about like normal household stuff, like what you want to drive off an inverter, like how big of an inverter do you need? Um, because
Yeah.
if you go in the bigger sizes, like we will have two 5000s.
Okay.
Um, there's really good savings in stepping up to 48 volts. Right? That's the bottom line.
Yeah. 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 I would tend to agree with you on that, with the exception of it's very difficult to take, let's say, my boat, which is 12 volt, and bump it up to 48 volt. There's a lot of um, stuff that would need to take place. I know the individual asking this question. I won't say who it is, but I know he's looked at going 24 volt on his boat and now stepping up to 40 volt. He was just kind of curious your thought process and going all the way up to 48 volt versus maybe a 24 volt boat.
Yeah. Well, it's 24 is, and these are semi-arbitrary numbers, right? It's
Yeah.
uh, we have 12 and 24 on this boat.
Yeah.
And I'm glad I went with 24 because we saved a bunch on cables and
Yeah.
it was a little bit cheaper and stuff like that. Um, but really, there's nothing that we're driving. Like the autopilot is running off of 24,
Yeah.
but that's the only thing we have that's running off of 24. So really, there's no need to stick to 24. You might as well go to 48.
Right. Right. Okay, fair
It-
enough. So that's
Now,
hopefully that answers the question for the individual. So let me just get back on track, and we'll go into some of these other miscellaneous questions here in a minute. But now let's just talk, Mads, a little bit, if you don't mind sharing some of your thoughts about the future. You've got this amazing project that you're working on. It's multiple years to do. Are you wanting to then do what? What's next for Mads and Ava? What's going on next? What do you think? If you
so
can tell the future, which we can.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, our best guess at the future right now is that it'll take I don't know, another 4 years or whatever to finish the catamaran, and then we'll set off sailing again. That that is that is the current goal.
That is a current goal. So when you set off sailing, where do you want to go? And like, if you had some top places that you think that would be very appealing to both of you, where is that?
Yeah. Um. Well, we've always talked about the South Pacific. I really, really, and Ava also wants to go to the west coast of Canada and Alaska and like that stretch up there by BC and but
Okay.
that I've spent a little bit of time up there and it's freaking amazing. I would absolutely love to go back there.
You probably feel somewhat at home there because it's a little bit chillier there than the South Pacific. So,
It's not this chaotic sweat lodge of Florida.
yeah, right, right. So when you can, like, if you were to say this is like your ultimate dream destination, do you have something like that, or is it more just simply this, continuing to just move around and explore areas, or do you have any sort of a set idea in mind?
No, I think it's just like cruising, being able to go to different places
Yeah.
and bring your whole existence with you, right? That's yeah.
How will you Mads be able to shift gears? I mean, you're talking about, sailing and cruising, which is very different than DIY, even though you'll continually have DIY projects on any boat, no matter where you are. How is that going to work?
It's not the same.
It's not the same. Yeah.
No. And it's that is one of the things, like we've spent the last 4 years sailing on this boat. And it is
Yeah.
one of the things that I really was missing.
Yeah.
Uh the creative aspect of being able to make something.
Yeah.
Uh and about a year ago I got a little 3D printer to have on this boat. And
Yeah.
that was like a little band-aid on a broken leg. Right? It's like it's nice, but it doesn't really it doesn't like doesn't scratch the itch or whatever the saying is.
Right.
Uh,
Right.
I, I'm hoping by the time we set off sailing again, I will have gotten that little bit older, so maybe just calm down a little bit more.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Um,
not feel like that you need to be like doing a major project and can kind of just enjoy the adventure of sailing to remote places, hopefully.
yes, because
Who will,
I
yeah,
I love going to remote places, but it's just uh yeah. I ideally I would want to bring the workshop with me, but that's
yeah.
probably not gonna happen. It's but yeah.
Well, here's a thought for you, Mads, that I'll just throw out. And that's one of the things that I noticed when we slowed down. When we went to the South Pacific, we thought that was great, and it was. But we found, and I think that you might, I think I could see you fitting into this mold a little bit. And that's, we went to some very remote villages. And what we found is that they didn't have the skills to do a lot of things to fix stuff in those villages. It could be fishing boats, fiberglass repair, sewing machines, installing the solar system, electrical problems that they have. And so what we ended up doing that I found that was really fascinating and we really enjoyed were doing projects in villages. May not be on a boat, but I mean, fixing fiberglass and teaching them how to do these things almost as kind of, it might be an outlet for you. I don't know when you go to these remote
I
places,
would
but I know you like, well, yeah, go ahead.
I would freaking love that. That would be amazing.
Yeah, because I mean, you would be so good at it. You have so many skills, you're so broad on what you could do, and you have a 3D printer on on board. Man, oh man, yeah, you could build a Taj Mahal on these islands.
Well, you got a little version at least.
A little, yeah, right, a little one. That's right. That's right. No, but that is something that might allow you to kind of take all the skills that you have and open it up into a different space, but still using them right in a village.
Yeah.
I don't know. I found it very enjoyable, and I hadn't ever thought of doing that until we were asked, "Hey, can you fix my boat?" And I was like, Maybe. Let me see if I have any,
No, it's
resin on board." Yeah,
I think you might be onto something there because like some of the big joys of cruising was like being able to help other cruisers.
that's right.
And this would just be, well, the same but slightly different.
Yeah, yeah. Anyway, just an idea I was just thinking about.
Yeah.
Um, Somebody here said that would be a fascinating YouTube channel. I'm guessing she's talking about a YouTube
Fixing.
channel of fixing and helping villages. Yeah,
Yeah.
somebody on board. Okay, so let me ask you a couple more questions here, just about the future and kind of where things are going for you guys. Well, actually, let me just back up. If you if you w- what is the one thing that you wish you knew now about your journey that you've had so far that you wish you knew that you would have done differently? Anything that you would have done differently, kind of through your whole process where you are today, if you knew it back then?
Um, no, well, it would be like it would be like boat specific things. For instance, with this boat, right? I'd already rebuilt a part of it, and then we found out that there was uh, rotten plywood in the stringers and stuff, so had to tear everything out again to fix that. And I mean, stuff like that would have been nice to have thought
Yeah,
about before.
right, right.
Yeah, yeah.
But nothing much beyond that. I mean, that's obvious too, because that's a huge project. I'm say, oh my God, the plywood's rotten. I have to dig back through that. Is there anything that was surprising about you that you didn't anticipate when you finished your first boat and you guys went sailing across the Atlantic that was like Yeah, that's a big journey across the Atlantic. I mean, and so anything surprise you that you didn't really expect about, blue water sailing?
No. Also, but we had I don't know how we got away with that, but we had the most benign crossing ever. Like our friends, they crossed 3 weeks before us, and they had back-to-back squalls and misery for the entire passage. And then
Well,
we come along and we leave, and we have 3 days without wind, and then we just have like steady 20s from there on. Right? It's just not a single squall. We did not see a single squall on the whole crossing.
really, nothing. It was that easy, huh? Were you able to sail most of the way? Did you have to motor at all? How was the crossing? Was there enough wind to sail?
The crossing is good. We motored for
Yeah.
the first 2 days, I think. Then we had one day with Spinnaker, and then we were back to white sails.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's
I mean,
fantastic. What a trip.
it's it was a great first Atlantic crossing.
Looking back again, one more kind of looking back and giving advice as an old sage on this, Mads. What is the most valuable lesson I have learned that you would like to share with people about fixing and DIY projects on boats? If you could pick one thing, what would that be?
Uh, I I I don't know. I would say it would be just give it a go, right? It's
Give it a
it's
go.
yeah. Don't be afraid to try.
Yeah.
Um, Most things on boats are fundamentally pretty easy to fix.
Okay.
If you spend a little bit of time just doing a tiny bit of research, getting prepared for whatever project you're looking at,
Right.
then the overwhelming odds are you can do it safely yourself.
So just go for it and don't be intimidated by any project pretty much on a boat. Just go for it. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's good advice. I mean, I think that there are a lot of people um, that might be intimidated to do some of the things. And the reality is, you don't know what you don't know, but get out there. There's a lot of resources now as well. Are there any particular resources that you would say would be most beneficial for someone that's trying to do a DIY thing on their boat?
Um, it depends on like what type of project it is. If you're doing fiberglass work, West System has this great PDF
Okay.
uh, that tells you how to patch holes, how to
Yeah.
do gel coat repairs, how to like it's a really, really good little guide.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, if um, it's been so long I can't even remember, but there was definitely some good websites I used to learn about the like electrical stuff. I just can't remember what they were.
Yeah. Um, okay. So let's just now get into a couple of these questions that we have. We're getting close to on the hour. So we have a number of questions that have come through here, Matt. So let me just try to go through these the best that I can. Let's see here. It says, I love Sail Life, Mads. You're both inspiring and quite entertaining. Regarding the DIY components you fashion, be it the dome for controls or Lexon windows, would you consider fashioning the same for other owners? For example, if they want to turn you into a factory. Um, going to source is super expensive. You can actually create another revenue stream by doing this. They said
Yeah.
we need to replace our windows and have had many Atari's owners. Going to the source is super expensive. That's kind of what they're talking about. Another owner, Atari's owner.
That was actually one of the things that have I think maybe I talked to the previous owner of Fireboat Brian about it, but like I would really enjoy the project of figuring out the specifics of like bending,
Yeah.
because it would also involve building a giant oven, which that would be cool. So
Yeah.
um, yeah, I mean we're still a few years away from that, at least, but
Of course.
yeah, look out for some window competition.
Another question came through, and that is, um, if you was there ever an option or a thought that you had on outfitting your boat to make it a hybrid instead of just replacing the diesels? You're going 48 volt.
Hmm. Well, we're as of right now, we believe the diesels are good.
Yeah.
And um, I just think for us to convert to hybrid would probably be biting off more than the wallet can handle.
Understood.
So
Yeah.
uh, I think we're just gonna stick with diesel.
Okay. Well, that was a question, actually by another person that actually owns a hybrid. So they were just curious if you've thought of that and gave it any sort of a thought going hybrid. Um, all right. So I know we're getting towards the end. I said I would keep it as close as possible to 1 hour. Mads, I just have one more question for you, and then we can. So are you ready for this one?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. It is, if you were to write a book about your life, what would you call it? What would the title of that book be about your life?
I think it would have to be "Oh Glorious Sanding."
Oh, Glorious Sandy.
That
Yeah.
that seems to have done well by me over the years now.
Yeah. Oh, Glorious Sandy. Well, that's good. Well, listen, Mads, I mean, I really, really appreciate you taking the time to just have a conversation with us about just, who you are, your background, give us some behind the scenes on your YouTube channel. I mean, there's a lot in there. I think that you have a great channel, and I would encourage anyone watching this, please, go to Sail Life, check out their YouTube channels. Please subscribe. You'll learn a lot, just like I've learned a lot. And I just think it's just fantastic to see somebody out there that has a good sense of humor, that's as smart as you are, Maz, to be able to go out there and help those of us that only wish we had a 3D printer sitting in our cockpit to be able to do some of the cool stuff that you're doing. Um, Somebody else said, "Bravo! Thanks again for doing this, man." So people are very appreciative. I thank you so much. I appreciate it. Any other closing thoughts that you have on your side, or not?
Well, no, I want to say thank you to you and to the rest of the Antares community. Like everybody I've met at like at Roadshow or in the owners forum, everybody has been so freaking nice. It's the best cult I've ever been a member of.
It is. I mean, people have called it a cult. I mean, I think it is a great group of owners, and we're happy to have you on board as one of them. So thanks again, Mads. I really appreciate it.